What's going on, y'all? We got episode 12 of the Let's Be Real podcast. We back. So definitely got a great episode for y'all today. We're going to touch on some football from last week. I know we had the NBA edition drop last episode here a few days ago. And so we're still going to try to stay on schedule, and we're going to drop that second half probably this weekend or on Monday. And so definitely stay tuned for that. But look, we're right back in it, man. We're going to talk about obviously last Sunday and the football games. We're going to talk about some headlines from this last weekend, go over some trade deadline news, and then we'll look ahead to tomorrow's Thursday night game. As always, we're going to start with the wine, man. I'm actually, you know what? It's the same wine from last week. It's the Pogarisi. I didn't finish it, so that's what I'm going to be finishing up tonight. But we also, man, we're going to talk just a little bit of NBA. We're still at the beginning of the year, and I know we're right in the middle of football season, so that's obviously going to take precedent. But it wouldn't be me if I didn't get some NBA in there, man. And so, first, man, let's just start. If y'all didn't see John Morant's layups, two of them, man, look, anybody who wants to tell y'all that the NBA is anything that's not better as far as these athletes go than it was before, they're wrong. Because if you look at John Morant's layup, man, we still show Michael Jordan switching his hands on a regular old layup that I see middle schoolers do right now as one of the big highlights of his career. We're not talking about John Morant going up for a dunk, 360 and switching hands and finishing. And so again, man, just where the league is at, the athleticism, the skill level, man. I don't. If anybody trying to tell you it's not better than it was before, know that, man, you might be talking to somebody who got a little bit of a bias or an agenda with it. But on to some of the real news with it though is, man, look, the Warriors. Look, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a team who has a legitimate 12-man rotation and is winning. But that's been one of the fun things to see, man, is the Warriors playing well. I think they're tied right now in the West for first place, three-way tie. Granted, 8 games in, 7 games in, something like that. But yeah, man, it's just 12 men getting Steph some rest. He's only averaging about 27 minutes a game or so. And so it's it's fun to see, and it's really just a testament to how good that organization is, man. Because if we look at other teams around the league, where how many teams could afford their best player to not be playing, or to only be playing 27 minutes a game, and they're going 12 people deep and be winning at a high level. And I mean, we see it with I'll push it to the Lakers, right? Where the Lakers, if LeBron was playing 27 minutes a game, if AD was playing 27 minutes a game, they're not playing at the level that the Warriors are, and it's purely a testament to how great that Warriors organization has done finding talent, bringing talent in. It's one of those pieces, Buddy Hield, who has been linked to the Lakers for multiple years now, having his best year of his career, shooting over 50% from the three, almost like you could probably use a guy like that if you're the Lakers. And so again, it comes back to just a testament to what the difference can be in the NBA, or really in any sport, but what a great front office general manager can do compared to what these worst general managers, worst front offices can do. And so, man, they're fun to watch. Again, we talked about in our basketball episode is, can they sustain this, or can you do this in the playoffs? No, I wouldn't pick them to play in the playoffs or do well in the playoffs. But from what they're doing this regular season, obviously we're going to have probably a regression and a mean with a lot of these players. But just watching them play right now, and it's fun. I think there'll be a fun regular season team. And then moving on to let's talk about another organization that's on that opposite end right now. From kind of looks of it, is the Bucks, man. Bucks, one win so far, not looking good. You dropped your coach last season to bring in Doc Rivers, who we talked about it again on that NBA episode, man. It's no one has gotten more juice out of one championship than Doc Rivers. And now the Bucks they're in a tough situation, man, because you know, obviously it's early in the season, long season to go, but it can get away from you quick in the first month, 2 months. And if they don't start turning this around, man, you know, Giannis isn't guaranteed to be there forever. And it's even come out with the Knicks that one of the big reasons they made that cap move was to have a piece that, they could ultimately move to get Giannis. And Giannis has already flirted with the idea of leaving. And so, man, the Bucks, they're in a tough spot, man. You traded away a guy who has since won a championship in Drew Holiday, one of the best, if not the best, guard defenders and just overall defenders in the league. Who again, that team just looks, that as far as talking about the Celtics, looks just dominant. And you brought in Dame, a guy who, him and the Giannis thing they haven't quite worked that out, hasn't quite fit together well. Doc Rivers, who has shown, he's, while in name he's a great coach, in practice over his last two jobs, he hasn't been a great coach. And so it's interesting to see kind of what they'll do. And if this thing does start spiraling, if we maybe hear from Giannis as far as wanting out, or if the Bucks just go ahead and, bite that bullet and start possibly listening to or taking phone calls on it. But that's what we're going to touch on for the NBA today, man. Let's hop into the NFL because, like I said, we are halfway into the season, in the exciting part of the season, man. And we're going to go over a couple of the games as always, like we do on this episode. And we're going to start off, man. We're going to start off. Usually I finish with them, but we're going to start off with the Eagles and the Jags. And so I'm going to start off with the Jags point of view, man. Tough, man. Peterson looking like he's probably going to be on the way out here soon. You come out, you get, absolutely your doors blown off. And then, you start mounting this comeback. And then I said it when I was watching the game with some friends, man. They drove it down into that red zone area, the Jags, with the chance to win it. And I was like, Trevor Lawrence is good to give you one. And right on cue, as I said, that ball snap throws you to pick. And so, again, it's tough because now, is Peterson responsible for that pick? No. But is Peterson responsible for them being down 22 or nothing or whatever it was to start the game? Absolutely. And then with games against the Vikings and Lions coming up in these next 2 weeks, that's looking like 2 losses. And I think anything short of winning both of those games going into the bye with some momentum, I can't see him keeping his job into that bye week. And so my guess is we'll probably see Peterson fired after that Lions game. On the flip side, man, look, we got some first quarter points, Eagles, okay, and running the ball through Saquon. I like what the play calling has looked like these last couple of weeks, but in just true Nick Sirianni fashion, man, you can't have a winning week without wanting to fire the guy. And so some of just the most egregious and bad decision making I've seen. The multiple times going for the 2-point conversion when it wasn't necessary. It's just you scored 28 points with 4 touchdowns and a field goal. If you kick your extra points in that, especially that first one, just made no sense to me. It doesn't change the game at all as far as making an extra possession game. And so that one was mind-boggling. And then from there, now you're behind. So now you got to go for 2 to kind of make up those points, and you can't get it. And so one bad decision just leads to a snowballing effect of bad decisions, which ultimately leads to the point where a game you've dominated for 40 minutes you now might lose, and they're in your red zone with a chance to take the lead. And that is directly related from bad decisions earlier in the game from him. And so, again, man, it's not an Eagle segment without Sirianni somehow being involved in some kind of issue with the team. And again, I mean, if there was ever a fireable win, I think we talked about that on one of the wins earlier this year. But again, this is another one where it's just like bad coaching. And it's coaching, it's mistakes that you can't have in the playoffs, which is why, again, it's feeling very reminiscent of last year, where it's like, hey, we're winning these games. And then when you get to a point where coaching is actually going to matter a little bit more and you're playing teams where you can't make those mistakes against, you get your doors blown off in the first round of the playoffs. And so, obviously, AJ, a little bit of an injury, but Howie, look, no deals at the deadline. Usually he's somebody who does make a lot of deals. And so what that tells me is that he thinks the talent is there. I think the talent is there. I think most of us think the talent is there. So anything, again, you fall short this year, Sirianni, I can't see him coming back next year, especially when you just have so many different times this year where you can point to the fact of like, gosh, that's just bad. Whether it's, play calling on the field, decision making on the field, or decision making like, trash talking your fans, things like that. It's a snowballing effect where anything short of, I think, getting to a Super Bowl, yeah, I can't see him brought back. But look, sticking with the NFC East, let's move over Falcons and Cowboys, man. Obviously, Falcons, they're still rolling. It looks like they're, again, trying to run away with that division while the Bucs are kind of just trying to band-aid together their team with all the injuries. But the Cowboys is the real story here, man. So obviously you see we got Dak going down, right? So Dak goes down with the hamstring. Reports are it's pretty bad. Put him on the IR. And so from there, obviously you're looking at, okay, well, he's going to be gone at least 4 weeks. We're going to have a backup quarterback in. We haven't been playing well anyways. This is probably a time where, like we discussed earlier, time for the Cowboys to maybe be sellers at the deadline and, maybe start looking to recoup some of those picks that, they've used well in the past. And instead they go out and make a trade to bring in, I'm going to say talent, but, bring in a new wide receiver, which to me makes no sense. We are going to talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the best moves and the worst moves from the trade deadline. I'm going to let y'all have a guess at where I'm going to put that Cowboys move. But again, so Dak goes down. Looks like they're still trying. Jerry's still bought into going all in this year. And what I think the real kind of storyline here is you have Dak go down, and now you bringing in Cooper Rush. And so, to me, I guess it makes sense if you're thinking that you have a chance this year. To me, you're not living in reality. So what I think all of us should think is a more obvious move for them is you guys are probably not going to make any noise. You're not going to catch the Eagles. You're not going to catch the Commanders, and you're not going to be good enough to get a wild card spot in the NFC. So obviously you're looking to improve your draft picks. Or possibly find somebody that would bring you back draft picks. And this is where I'm going to say Trey Lance should be the starter. You went out, you spent draft capital, and not like a bad 5th, 6th, 7th, like you spent a higher draft pick normally where you could get value for your team to bring in Trey Lance. And now you finally have that scenario where it's almost a win-win for you as far as we can bring him in. If he shows flashes, awesome. Maybe we can move him, get some draft pieces back, or, at least have something going into next year with Trey Lance as a backup, whatever it is. Instead, you're going to start Cooper Rush, who's probably going to. I mean, you guys couldn't win with Dak. I doubt you're going to be winning with Cooper Rush. And so you're basically giving up on Trey Lance after you spent draft capital on him. And then to me, it's going to be the same outcome either way. Is you're gonna be stacking losses either way. I'd rather stack losses and possibly find a diamond in the rough in Trey Lance that can turn into something, as opposed to, you know, Cooper Rush, who we all know who Cooper Rush is. Like there's no big splash that's going to come from Cooper Rush. And so this again, man, it goes back to just the Cowboys. And, we talked about bad organizations earlier. It goes back to these bad organizations. And we're going to talk about them a little more in that, like I said, that trade deadline. But yeah, I think they are compounding bad moves into just making them worse. And so we'll see how it plays out for them. But like I said, to me, it's like they're not operating in reality, which is kind of a staple of Jerry Jones. And so we're going to move over, man. Another one of the big games of the week. We got Bills, Dolphins, man. Look, great game. Great game. We had both quarterbacks play well. Loved seeing Tua back out there, moving the offense looked great. And it's just tough, man, because I think it's just a little too late. I don't think they're going to be able to kind of dig themselves out of this hole, which is unfortunate because, even if they're a wild card team, it's always fun to see, a team that has Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, HN, like most like the pieces they have on that offense, man, would have been so fun to see in the playoffs, as long as they're not playing in, sub 50-degree weather. But I think it's a little too late for them, which is also what surprised me about the fact that they held pat at the trade deadline. Like, weren't trying to move anybody, weren't trying to get some draft capital. Like, to me, that signals that you are still thinking you have a chance this year. And again, maybe they do, but 2-7 it's a long way to come back from. It's a long way to come back from. And I know the AFC is not outside of like the top teams, like that last wild card team is probably going to be possibly a 9-win team. But you got to go you got to get 7 wins in the last 8 weeks. And so it's just, yeah, I can't see them doing it. I don't understand them home pat, but I guess maybe if it's looking at as far as we're just going to bring the whole crew back for next year and run it back, maybe then just, fingers crossed that you don't have any devastating injuries. And from the Bills, man, look, Josh Allen and the Bills, man, they're still rolling, still playing well. But, and I get it, the Dolphins aren't your typical, 2-win team. But it's just the Bills have shown it's the same thing, man. They look dominant against bad teams, and then they look very, very beatable against, above average to good teams. And so that's, the story for them, man. It's just, what are you going to do in the playoffs? Obviously they didn't have Amari Cooper this week, which was their big kind of near the trade line addition, which I think was great. I think it was a great addition for them. And we've talked about that. But again, it's just, and I think it was one of their biggest pieces missing, but I can't trust this team in the playoffs when I haven't seen you dominate good to great teams. And so, yeah, man, we'll see kind of how that shakes out. Obviously, I don't see them stopping, but again, it's just they're going to fall in that same kind of, to a lesser extent, but the same kind of bucket as Baltimore, man. Like, yeah, your QB is incredible. You have great weapons now, especially with Amari, but what are you going to do come playoff time? And I don't know who I believe in more at that point, the Ravens or the Bills. But speaking of a team I'm definitely believing in, Lions and Packers. And actually, funny, I very much believe in one, and I very much don't believe in the other. And y'all know I have not been the biggest Packer kind of believer, and look, this is why. I've told y'all with the Jordan Love stuff, man. I can't trust a quarterback who going into each week, I know he's going to give me one or two, especially not one that's like a younger QB where I don't think he can overcome it. And we saw it, man. Look, early in the game, but needed to, go down and score. And he just makes some of the worst decisions any quarterback can make. And you know, it's like I said, man, and I've said it multiple times. I said it this last weekend. I was watching a game with a Packers fan, and I was like, he's gonna have throws where you're like, wow, how did he make that pass, or how did he throw that? And then you're also gonna have plays where you're like, wow, how did he throw that? And that's what you saw, man. He makes spectacular plays, but also he spoon feeds a pick six. And it's just, again, I can't, with that kind of inconsistency, especially at the quarterback position, especially now in today's NFL, I can't trust that. And I think I think this last game, this last weekend, really kind of, I think we all knew it, but he was getting away with a lot of them, like those punt throws to Romeo Dobbs that he just kind of lofts in the air. Like he gets away with those things, and he has been this year. In a game where he doesn't, it looks like it does, where the Lions come out and dominate you like they've been dominating everybody. And so, speaking of linesmen, look, another great win for them. Obviously, now just kind of pulling away from that NFC North and looking like the team to beat in the NFC. Jared Goff is playing absolutely incredible. Um, Basically playing perfect QB every week. Numbers aren't, mind blowing, which, as we're going to go into in a little bit, I'm doing kind of mid-season awards. You're not going to see Jared Goff in the MVP. Just the numbers aren't there. But as far as just playing the position at the perfect level that your team needs you to, he's got like a 75 completion percentage, 30 straight completions or something like that to Amon Ra. Like, it's just, again, he's playing incredible. And when we get to the MVP, I'll touch on him for a little bit. But again, if he's playing like that, and if his numbers under pressure are top 5 in the league in every category, which was always his biggest knock. It was never the talent that he had. It was always just when you get pressure on him, it's not that he becomes an average QB, he becomes a bad QB. And this year that has not been the case. And so, look, props to him, props to the Lions. They are absolutely just killing it. And again, like I said, it's what leads to you being the team to beat in the NFC. Probably I'll have my rankings, but last week they were 2. Spoiler alert, they're going to be 2 again. And so, yeah, man, excited to see kind of what turns out for them. And we also got some stuff from them at the trade deadline. And bringing in a pass rusher, like I said, I was wanting them to. I'm glad they did. Bringing in Zadarius Smith, who, again, not Hutchinson. Zadarius Smith, older now. You're not going to get the production that you would have gotten out of Hutchinson, or even, like I said, I was hoping they would go get somebody like Hassan Reddick, absolutely best case scenario, a Max Crosby. He's not on that level, but he's a guy who gives you a good pass rusher. And bringing him over, automatically he has the second most QB pressures on the team behind Hutchinson, who is still in first after not playing for 3 weeks. So, again, clearly a spot of need. They have, they're missing a ton with Hutchinson out. And so I think this is a really good move for them. I love what they did with that. And then lastly, man, we're going to finish it off. Monday night game, Chiefs-Bucks. And look, I got to give it up. I got to give it up to the Bucks, man. They came out and played. And, this is a team that could very easily, after the Godwin injury, after the Evans injury, very easily could have rolled over. You're playing the undefeated number 1 team, champions, the Chiefs. It could have gotten out of hand quick. And look, credit to the Bucks, credit to Baker, because I think his personality and just he has taken over kind of the personality of that team. It's great to see, man. Unfortunate for him because look, if you go back to some of our earlier discussions in the NFL, he was arguably leading the league for as far as MVP goes, and it's just with the cluster injuries and the record now. Obviously, he's going to be out of that, but look, I love what he's doing out there still. I love watching him fight still. Obviously, you're going to get Mike Evans back, and look, I don't think they're out of it yet. Like their record is okay enough still where you could slide into a wild card spot. Or look, Atlanta, they've shown that they can have some hiccups. And so, if Atlanta maybe drops a few games, they should win. You might see the Bucks kind of getting close, maybe sneak in and kind of take that division lead. I don't think it's likely, but again, I don't think it's not likely for them to get in the playoffs. And if they get in the playoffs, man, they've shown that they can play. So it's going to be exciting to watch them the rest of the year. But on the other side of the ball, man, the Chiefs, look, this is one of the very few times where this year, over the last couple of years, where the defense didn't look great. And obviously, their second cornerback going out is a big loss for them. Passing defense already wasn't the best, but now you take away your second best corner. And, that's an area where, you can get exposed against these good teams. And right on cue, the defense doesn't give you one of those vintage, incredible top of the league defensive performances. And the offense is rolling, man. Look, Travis Kelce, monster game. DeAndre Hopkins, monster game. And I think you might start seeing this offense start to take off again. I think that DeAndre Hopkins really I knew he was going to be great for them as far as giving them a contested catch guy, which you even saw, man, and that throw in triple coverage. I don't know how he came down with that. I don't know how Mahomes fitted in there. But, man, what a catch, what a throw. But also, he works in that middle of the field, which, chain mover, which is where Travis Kelce works, which means you got to pick your poison. And it's, man, when you got to try to figure out who you're going to stop between both of them, means both of them are going to be getting open. And so, and that's what we saw this week. So I think with that, now you got Xavier Worthy, who, if he can figure out how to get his feet in bounds, man, that's an over-the-top threat. If Hollywood ends up coming back, that's an over-the-top threat. Pacheco will be coming back here in a few weeks. That's going to be big for them, even with Kareem Hunt averaging about 4 yards a carry. Like, this offense is rolling. I can't see it stop. I can't see it not continuing to roll. And so, we'll see what that defense looks like. Obviously, they didn't make any trades, but for any kind of secondary help. But brought in another pass rusher, which is good. And we'll see kind of how that defense can hold up, see if they make any moves as far as free agents. There's a couple names out there they might go after. But again, I think even if the defense kind of regresses from some of those injuries to being a good defense, with what I think this offense is going to start looking like, I think, again, they're just the best team in the league. And so, look, we're going to move away from that. Let's move into some of just the headlines. And biggest thing I'm focused on right now, man, is this NFC West. Look, Cardinals came out and dominated. Granted, I don't think you can expect that defense to look great every week. But look, that offense is good against what looked to be at points this year a great Bears defense, looked to be probably just a good defense. But man, that offense can go. And look, the way I look at it is, now, will it bring you to a Super Bowl? No. But if you got a good offense, and I mean a top offense, you're going to win games and you're going to be dangerous. And so, and the Cardinals, with that, they got a bad schedule. They got that last place schedule. Man, I don't think they'll win it. But again, man, it's one of those things, like, it wouldn't shock me if they just slip up and win the division. But look, you got the Niners, the Rams, the Seahawks. Like, that division is just crazy, man. And it's just, we'll have to see who comes out of it. The Niners are supposed to be getting Christian McCaffrey back. That makes them so much better. Their red zone offense is, I would think, would look a lot better than it has because, again, with Christian McCaffrey back there, even if he's not getting the ball, just the amount of attention he brings, if you're a running back, you're going to get numbers in Shanahan's offense. But when the defense really has to key on Christian McCaffrey, it just opens everybody else up. And as we've seen, man, Brock Purdy doesn't look as great without him back there. And, we'll talk about that probably as the season goes on. If, Christian McCaffrey gets back and we all of a sudden see a big turnaround from Brock, what does that look like in the contract again this offseason? But as far as from the Niners' point of view, Christian McCaffrey coming back, I think they start taking off. And the Rams, they're all getting healthy again. And look, Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka, McVay, young defense that looks good. Like I would say those three teams, it's going to be close the rest of the year. I think the Seahawks maybe trail off. But again, they're another team, man. Geno, we've seen he can sling the rock. I think he's still leading the league in passing. And when you got, DK, Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker in the back, they're tight end. Like, they've got just talent on the offensive side. And so if I had to guess one falling off, it'd probably be the Seahawks, man. But I could also, at this point, I could see any of those teams winning this division, and none of it would shock me. So that's going to be fun to watch, man. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And so moving from there, man, let's go into the trade deadline. Obviously, we saw some moves. I'm going to leave off the ones we talked about, right? That didn't happen kind of like at the deadline. So like the DeAndre Hopkins ones. I'm not going to rate that one. Amari, not going to rate that one. But I'm going to give y'all the top two winners and then the bottom two trade moves that I saw from that kind of last hour of the deadline. And number one, I think y'all think you know where I'm going. It's not Zadarius Smith to the Lions. Lattimore to Washington, and I know they gave up a lot. But it's one of the reasons there was a few teams that were interested in Lattimore. I know the Chiefs are one of them, but just said it was too pricey with where the talks got. But look, that Commanders team already on offense was great, already leading the division. And you go out and address one of your weakest points and bring in a top flight DB corner who can take number one options on other teams. It's tough to say, and I can't even say it's tough to say because I had the Bears as like a team that I could see as like an outside contender to come into this year. But a rookie QB, man, who looks great, Kingsbury, who's running that offense like crazy, and then now you add Dan Quinn, who has made the defense serviceable, which is a bad defense, but you bring in Lattimore, that makes them, I think, a legitimate contender in the NFC. Now, if they were to match up with the Lions, do I think they'd win? No. But do I think any other team in the NFC, if they were to match up against them in the playoffs, they could win? Yes. And so, man, Lattimore's one. Number two, this is where you're going to get Zadarius Smith, man. I think with Detroit, not very many weaknesses across the team. Obviously, the defense is their weaker side of the ball. That secondary probably could have used some help. But I think now bringing in Zadarius Smith, a proven pass rusher who, can, again, do to a lesser extent what Hutchinson did as far as helping that secondary, I think it's huge. And, you're going for a Super Bowl for your Lions this year. You don't know what next year looks like. Ride the wave. And so love them going out and getting Zadarius Smith. So those are my top two. And now we're going to go to the bottom two. And so it'll be number two on the bottom two is going to be the worst one. So the number one is going to be Tre'Davious White to the Ravens. Look, it's unfortunate because I'm not trying to really dog Tre'Davious White here, but not the player he used to be. A lot of that has to do with injuries. He's a guy where I look at as like you brought in a name as opposed to the actual player. And so obviously that Ravens secondary hasn't been good. I don't think this makes them better. But again, they didn't give up much. And so it's tough with Tre'Davious White because you didn't give up much. And so I don't view it like that's the tough one. I think there's really only one really bad trade here. Everything else, like this, I think is just kind of is a mid. It's like if I had to grade it, maybe like a C minus, D plus. Like it's nothing crazy. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just what it is. I don't think it helps. I don't think it hurts. Tre'Davious White has been sitting on the bench basically the last 3-4 games, and so for what they gave up, I guess it's worth a flyer. But again, I can't see it as a needle mover for them. And then this is where we have the legitimately one awful trade of this trade deadline. And if you've been watching anything, I'm sure we all agree on this. Jonathan Mingo to the Cowboys. That, again, what are we doing, Cowboys, man? Dak goes down with an injury, gets put on IR, out at least 4 weeks, and you guys already are not looking like you're going to make the playoffs. And so what do? You trade your 4th-round pick this year, which, again, let's put this into context. 4th-round pick is more than the Chiefs traded for DeAndre Hopkins, and it's more than the Ravens traded to the same team for the better receiver, Deontay. Again, what I would say really is if you are an NFL GM and you're looking to make a move that makes you look good in front of your owners, trade with the Cowboys. Trade with the Cowboys. Because the Cowboys are guaranteed, if you're trading with the Cowboys, then you're guaranteed to come out looking better than they are. And so I don't understand the move. You traded a fourth for, again, guy was a 2nd-round pick a couple years ago, but doesn't get any separation, has issues dropping the ball. And, I mean, you can't really blame dropping the ball and separation on the quarterback. And now it's not like he's going to have, a guy really slinging the rock to him. Like he's going to have Cooper Rush back there. And so a waste of a pick from Dallas. Your 4th rounders, I mean, for everything Dallas does bad, what they can do is draft pretty well, especially with their later picks. 4th round is where they've gotten Ferguson. I think Dak was a 4th-round pick. Like they get players in the 4th round that are good players for them. And so to give that up to bring in a guy who I don't think there was going to be a market for, and again, you paid more than the Ravens paid to get the better receiver from Carolina. So, to me, makes no sense. Like I said, if you're an NFL GM and you're thinking, man, I might be on the hot seat, try to do a deal with the Cowboys because it'll save your job. And then from the Cowboys' point of view, it goes back to I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they think this season is. But again, you get the grade for the worst trade deadline of the year. And then lastly, man, we're going to move into our midseason awards, man. So just kind of pointing out who I think are leading candidates right now. If the season was to end today, who would win the awards? We're going to start. Look, I mentioned it earlier with Goff as far as the MVP. If his numbers were better, I would probably have him there. But right now, with just the numbers Lamar is putting up, and with him, it's going to be tough because, again, every week I feel like I say it is like the Ravens are like the most dangerous team. They're not dominant in times. Like we see them just with these weird losses, and at times they look like they might be the best team in the NFL, and at other times they don't. And I mean, look, they're going to play tomorrow night against the Bengals, and they lose to the Bengals, man. They're 6-4, I think, and it's just that's not a dominant team. Like no dominant teams are 6-4, 7-3. Like I mean, 7-3 is good. Like you're one of the better teams in the league, but it's not dominant. So I think again, we're gonna have to see kind of where their record lays out. But with where their record is right now, and with what he's doing as far as numbers wise, I would say Lamar's kind of the front runner of the MVP. The only thing I would say is, obviously, we're doing it if the season ends right now. But if Patrick Mahomes ends the year undefeated, even if his numbers are kind of what we've normally seen, obviously this last week excluded where he had a great game, but like, if he's kind of middle of the pack, all his numbers, but his team goes undefeated, the Chiefs go undefeated, I would say Mahomes would probably win it. Outside of that, I would say right now, Lamar front runner. Rookie of the year, easy, Jaden Daniels. I thought Caleb had a chance over these last couple weeks. That's gone. I think this award is pretty much locked up. And look, this is we talked about the coaching before, but this is a direct just shot as far as from the Bears, because you had a chance to go get the OC, who I mentioned him earlier. I can't think of his name now. Weird, but the OC from Washington, Kingsbury. You had a chance to bring him in as your OC. And look, say what you want about him as a head coach, not great. The one thing that every exec, every, people who are involved in those hiring process says about Kingsbury, as an OC, he's great. And so you had a chance to go get him, you don't. And again, this goes back to the organizations, man. You make these bad moves, and now I'd like to think that Caleb is the more talented, better quarterback, but it doesn't look like it. And so, I think Jaden, way better situation than Caleb, even with offensive weapons that aren't as great as Caleb's. I think he's still in a better situation just from he's got good weapons, got a good OC. And so Jaden, far away, run away as far as rookie of the year goes. I don't think it would need to take just a monumental collapse or just an insane second half of the year from Caleb, which I don't think we're going to see as they move into the harder part of their schedule. Offensive player of the year, man, look, Derrick Henry. And I think if there is one knock against Lamar on the MVP, is that Derrick Henry is going to be up for that MVP as well. And do they kind of do that thing where, they take votes from each other, which then leads to another guy winning? Maybe. But as of right now, Derrick Henry, I would say, locked in as far as offensive player of the year. Defensive player of the year, TJ Watt, man. Look, he's a guy where you could probably give it to him every year, but the dude he's anchoring Pittsburgh, who great record, one of the best defenses in the league, and he's always going to be just a game wrecker, and he has been this year for him. And so I would say TJ, outside shot, again, Chris Jones, maybe, but I think TJ Watt's pretty much got this locked up, especially after the Hutchinson injury. And then coach of the year, man, we're going to go Dan Quinn. Look, I don't think anybody expected them. Actually, I can't say that because I had him as kind of my outside shot to win the division. And so I can't say no one saw it because I saw it, I guess. But, man, great job as far as what he's done in Washington and D.C., man. And that team, if they keep it up, if they mess around and win that division, I can't see it going to anybody else. I know, there's obviously there's always going to be coaches who can win it. Reed goes undefeated, maybe he wins it. Kevin O'Connell, depending on how Minnesota does this year, and maybe if the Commanders fall off a little bit, I could see him winning it. But right now, at this point, I would say Dan Quinn. And then, so that kind of wraps up our storylines, recap of last week. Now we're going to take this last about 60 seconds or so, go through the Ravens and Bengals game that's going to be tomorrow night. Look, man, I talked about it a little bit. The Ravens have shown that they can let teams win that shouldn't win. We've seen it this year a couple times, let teams back into the game when you shouldn't. And the Bengals, man, look, when the Ravens and Bengals played earlier in the year, it was a shootout, and so one thing goes differently, and maybe the Bengals win that game. And so, again, that Ravens secondary, you can eat against them. Joe has eaten against them. And from the Ravens, the Bengals defense, you can eat against them, and they ate against them. So I think this is probably one of the more exciting Thursday night games, especially with just how bad Thursday night games usually are. this is going to be a good one, man. I'm excited to watch it. And yeah, I'm hoping the Bengals win. I'd love to see them win just because it brings a little bit more intrigue into that AFC North with the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Steelers. If I had to guess, I would say the Ravens probably pull it out again. But again, it's hard to believe in the Ravens when just they've shown they have a propensity to let teams back into games when they're dominating them, or lose games that they shouldn't lose. So definitely tune in, man. We'll talk about it in the next episode. But I appreciate y'all. Look, Let's Be Real podcast. Like, subscribe, comment on the videos on YouTube, Spotify for podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Look, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, man. Look us up, comment, engage. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all next time.